Hundreds of thousands of people marched in support of a voice to Parliament yesterday at Yes rallies across the country. Here's what happened. Over the weekend, an estimated 200,000 Australians marched in rallies in Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, Hobart, Canberra, Newcastle and Darwin, as well as abroad in cities like New York, less than 4 weeks ahead of the referendum on the Indigenous Voice to Parliament. In Melbourne, the crowd gathered at the State Library before marching through the city, where Victoria's First Peoples Assembly co-chair Ruben Berg urged attendees to share with the broader community yes to recognition, yes to listening, yes to better outcomes for First Nations people, and yes for a better Australia. The First Peoples Assembly acts as a democratic voice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Victorians. It comprises of 31 members who are elected by First Nations communities every 4 years, and it's one of a few state-based Indigenous advisory bodies that already exist. The ACT and South Australia have also legislated bodies similar to the proposed Voice to Parliament. Also in attendance in Melbourne were Minister for Indigenous Affairs Linda Burney, among other Labor politicians, AFL legend Eddie Betts, Peter Garrett from the band Midnight Oil, and several of the original writers of the Uluru Statement to the Heart, including Professor Megan Davis, who actually delivered the first reading of the Uluru Statement ahead of its publication in 2017. The statement is what first called for the establishment of a First Nations voice enshrined in the Constitution, and the statement concludes by referencing the 1967 referendum to recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as part of the Australian population for the first time, which passed with a 90% yes vote. It says, in 1967 we were counted, in 2017 we seek to be heard. The Yes rallies coincide with a $20 million 4-week campaign blitz in the lead up to the referendum, which also features a new TV ad that shows an Indigenous child asking, will I grow up in a country that hears my voice? Will I live as long as other Australians? Will I get to go to a good school? Will I be able to learn my people's language? Will I be seen beyond the sports field, recognised by the decision makers of our country? Yes makes it possible. So what's next? Well, voting enrolments close at 8 p.m. Monday, tonight, and then on Saturday, October 14, we all need to vote on a change to our constitution that will mean that whatever government is in power must have an independent Indigenous Voice to Parliament advisory body. If it was just a legislated body, like many that have existed in the past, then any successive government can just vote in Parliament to get rid of it, as we have seen happen. But if it's written into the constitution, then it's effectively a permanent rule. The Voice would be able to advise on improving programs and services for First Nations people, but it won't be in charge of managing any money or delivering those services. The Yes campaign argues that we need this because First Nations people face very specific and unique challenges in this country, which have not been fixed despite decades and decades of government after government trying to improve Indigenous outcomes. These attempts haven't worked, so it's clear that we need to listen to First Nations people.